And so, for those who joined me before in the last year and have been to a BWP event, you know what I love to do is have people drop in their name and location in the chat so we can see where everyone is tuning in from just to get a sense. We have quite a few special guests today. I'm so excited because Red Bull was one of the first brands to actually utilize the directory and have been the most consistent to use the directory to hire. So I'm very excited about what we have today. And I see y'all in the chat. Yes, New York. I love it. Keep it coming. Elsie in the UK. I love it. So I'm going to just, I saw Jenna come in, so I'm going to pin her to the top as well. Just one second. Okay, so now you can see all our special guests pinned to the top. So I'm very excited. We have Kelly, Peter, Kate, and Jenna from Red Bull. They have been doing some incredible work and graciously are taking an hour of their day, their busy schedules to do this. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm very excited about it. Why don't you all just go by one to introduce yourselves? I don't know who wants to kick it off.
Start. My name is Kate Cook. I've been at Red Bull for 5 years. I work on the photography team with Kelly and Jenna, and we also work hand in hand sometimes with Peter. I work on the sports side of photo shoots. So if you're shooting anything from events to athlete shoots, sometimes we'll assign a new athlete and want to get a whole lot of new photographic content from them. We do all sorts of events that you can imagine that maybe you've seen out there with Red Bull. So we have people covering those. And then a lot of times we will do partnership photography if there's just like our athletes doing something cool and we want to cover that as well. On top of that, we work to hire photographers, and then myself and Kelly also do a lot of the back end stuff. So you would work with us on contracts and image delivery, technical specs on how you upload and all of those things. And I guess a little bit about myself. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. I'm that unicorn, and I love to snowboard and surf, play soccer, and hang out with my little 1-year-old and want to run around after her.
I love it. Thank you so much, Kate. Kelly, what about you go next?
Sure. So Kate and I have been working together for a little over 5 years. We started on the exact same day. And she handles sports. I'm on the culture side of things. So basically everything she just said, but I'm handling music, dance, art, anything in that realm. I'm originally from Charlottesville, Virginia, and I moved here 10 years ago. So half of my time in LA has been working with Red Bull, and super happy to be connected to Polly and meet all of you all today, and looking forward to seeing your portfolios and seeing how we can move forward together.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Jenna.
Hey guys, I'm Jenna. I'm the senior manager of photography at Red Bull. I oversee culture. So I work very closely with Kelly. And I'm kind of the person that does the overall creative strategy. I also work to hire photographers with Kelly and Kate as well. Any of the bigger projects like editorial shoots, that kind of falls into my realm. I've been at Red Bull for just over a year now, which is crazy. I started during the pandemic, so it's a lot of work from home and go to events, which has been quite an interesting experience. But prior to Red Bull, I used to work in entertainment. So I've worked at Netflix, I've worked at Quibi, I've worked at BuzzFeed, you name it. I've kind of been around the block for photo for quite some time. I'm originally from Hawaii, and so living in California for quite some time now. I live in Los Angeles. Really excited to see what you guys are working with today.
Thank you, Jenna. I mean, I don't know any of those names that you just listed off. So, I mean, that's amazing. Thank you. And last but not least, Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter Flax. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Red Bulletin, which mostly manifests itself as a print magazine that Red Bull puts out 10 times a year. But we also do digital content and some mini docs, and we're getting into the podcast space. I have been at Red Bull, I think, 4 years. Before that, I was at the Hollywood Reporter and at Bicycling and Runner's World. I've worked at a women's magazine. I've worked at news magazines. As editor-in-chief, I'm not usually the one that interfaces directly with photographers, but sort of like the overall direction and quality and voice and identity of the magazine is mine. And I always have just loved going to as many shoots as possible. I definitely go to more shoots than a lot of editors do because I like to really be there when the sausage is made. And I think that more editors should be present at shoots to just see, just sort of how that content comes together and what the obstacles are and how the magic's made. And I'm just super interested in photography, and I'm glad to be here and learn from everyone here. When I'm from New York and have lived in California for like 15 years. So when I'm in New York, everyone thinks I'm from California. And when I'm in California, everyone thinks I'm from New York, which is great.
Of course. Thank you all so much for the introductions. Thank you, photographers, for dropping in your location in the chat. And you heard, who's in the room. So if you have your portfolio ready, drop it in the chat because they will take a look and see, if it's a good fit to hire you. So what they say, stay ready. So you don't have to get ready. If you have your portfolio ready, drop it in the chat and they will check your work out and see who's a good fit to hopefully work at Red Bull on some projects. I see the locations, I see the portfolios coming. Amazing. So I'm gonna actually start with you, Peter. I'm gonna share my screen right now to pull up the bulletin site. Just 1 second. So I pulled up just the information because really I want photographers to understand how magazines work. Folks, within the group, a lot of them have expressed interest in working with magazines, being published, having their work in print. But what does that really mean? How does it all work? So if you could just walk us through your day-to-day of just how a standard issue comes about, for photographers can have a clear understanding of how it all works.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing, print is still, I think, romanticized by a lot of people, that having your imagery and your stories on paper versus on screens just still has this resonance that's special. On our end, the lead time is quite a bit different than for digital content, where typically it's probably like 4 months from when an idea is born to when it's in people's hands, at their mailbox or newsstand. And so, we're still like kind of gem carving in a way that's not possible in digital content, where there's just way more pressure to move quickly. I think that we like run the gamut of like working with some photographers who are like, sort of among the best in the world at what they do to young talent. And for young talent, I'd say that, actually coming with ideas is a big piece of like what can get somebody new into the mix. It's like there's been so much consolidation in the magazine space that I would say that both with writers and photographers, that even at the very top, everyone has to sort of hustle a bit more for all their work than they did 10 years ago. And so we have access to a lot of great sort of well-known photographers, but that we're always just looking for like our finger on the pulse of the culture. Like Red Bull is really interested in like what's happening all throughout the States and all throughout the world, and things that are happening in like sports and culture, in art, in adventure, that are that maybe not on the radar of a lot of people. And so like when someone can come with an idea and access to that idea, that's often a great way to get started. Yeah, I guess that's a good, at least starting point.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And so you said that you typically about 4 months ahead of time. So if somebody had a concept, an idea, they would at least need to prepare for like 4 months in advance.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, I'm just looking at the photo that's on the screen just there. It's like, we're a general interest magazine that like covers all these different vertical spaces. And so, in each of these vertical spaces, there often are photographers who like specialize in that space, right? That if in general, if you're going to photograph some world-class extreme skier, then chances are you're like a hyper competent skier to begin with, and that kind of goes like, it's not all just about sports, but it's like, to really unless it's just sort of like studio portraiture, which is kind of its own beast, that most people just find the things that they are really passionate about, the spaces that they know a lot about, and lean into those things in a way that it can be a strength, because having insight into a subculture and like knowledge about it and access to it is going to really give you something that not every photographer has.
So true. That's a really good point. Keep the portfolios coming in the chat. I see them. We'll pull some up as well and talk about your work. Kate and Kelly, you two are the work wives. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we started this very same day. That's why we always joke about it.
Amazing. So talk to us about your guys' day-to-day. How do you guys work with each other? How does your process work? What are you looking for when hiring photographers? And I'll also ask you the same question, Jenna.
I can go first. One thing that's super important to us is having a really good website. Sometimes people will send Instagram accounts, and we want to be able to look at your photos in a bigger picture, basically. So if you have just an Instagram account, like, followers are important, but for us, it's really about the aesthetic of being able to check out what your work looks like in a bigger screen. We also love an about me page, because it's so fun to know who you are ahead of time and know where you are. That kind of helps us narrow down what market we're going to hire you for. I guess also just staying kind of focused with what direction you want to go in with your work. I know when you're kind of at the beginning, you're in a fact-finding mission and you're trying to understand what direction you want to go in. But it is really nice to be able to say, okay, this person is going to be live music, or this person is going to be dance, or whatever it is. We love to be able to like categories in that way. And then what was the other part of the question you asked, Paul, or what else am I?
Yeah, that was perfect. I guess, like, how do you two work together then?
Okay, so yeah, we tag team a lot. I do work with Jenna quite a bit, especially with bigger ideas around the creative parts of how we want to work within culture. So we've had a lot of emphasis on dance photography in the last year. That's a huge market for us at Red Bull now. And so dance is a big thing. Like, if you have dance photography movement, we want to see that for sure. Kate is, she's all over on the sports world, and she's such a badass in that arena. And there are times where we do have crossover, but in general, the way that Kate and I will work together is like sending each other photographers, and like there is some overlap in that sometimes with sports and culture. So I'll send it over to Kate so I don't take up all the time here.
Hey, everybody. That was great. Everything Kelly said really correlates and corresponds to the sports side of things too. I think one question, Polly, you asked was kind of about our day-to-day. And I think there is like some sort of interesting part about that for both Kelly and I. A lot of times, you'll touch Red Bull and maybe you would talk to somebody like Peter, or Peter's photo editor is named Rudy, or Jenna, or one of the communications managers. I like to say a lot or sometimes your first touch is us. For the record, we also pitch photographers and send out photographers and hire photographers, but we are a lot of times we're like your guide through the Red Bull universe a lot of times for photography. I think if we were talking day to day, Kelly, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but a lot of times we're the one that's going to be like, okay, this is what we need to get your contract done. This is your briefing for like technical specs, how to deliver images, how we want the metadata done. We're the one you can text on Saturdays at 10 p.m. after a shoot to ask any sort of like freak out questions to. We're like your guide. We're your photo guide for the process at Red Bull a lot of the time. One thing you were asking about also is our day-to-day. A lot of things Kelly and I do, we look at our 2022 calendar. So right now, this couldn't be a better time to be having this call and doing this portfolio shoot, because Kelly and I just reached out to a ton of different teams at Red Bull. We're really cross-functional. So you'll find as you come into Red Bull, is there's so many different avenues that you can fit into and you can shoot in. And so we love, so Kelly and I kind of bring that all together. So we just requested a lot of 2022 calendars for all the shoots coming up. And very often the way I start my day is like, we have this huge Excel sheet, kind of a planner. And very often I look at that planner to be like, okay, what's on tap for today? What's on tap for the week? What's on tap for next week? Things like that. So I'm kind of like looking at the calendar. And then from there, it's a lot of that guide that we're talking about, reaching out to you guys, asking for information that we need just to get the ball rolling towards your shoot. And I think Kelly brought up some really good points about websites versus Instagrams. We love about me pages. We love all of those types of things. One other point I would say is, now that you have our contact information, I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth, but for me, and I know Kelly well enough, I can say for Kelly is, if you ever do new work, feel free to send it out to us. That's something we love to get from new photographers. It keeps you top of mind. Some photo editors don't love that, but Kelly and myself really do love that. And it reminds us where you live in the world. It reminds us what you're great at shooting, what you're confident at. And we love seeing what you're doing, as both Kelly and I are photographers ourselves. So we really appreciate all the hard work that you do. And we just love to check out cool photography.
I love all of that. I mean, such great points. And I'm going to share everyone's information after the fact. So do not worry. You have plenty of ways to how to contact them. I think one thing that you hit on, I mean, there's several points, but you also mentioned about just like how to follow up and how to build that relationship. So I guess if the photographer reaches out maybe today, it's into the new year, people are coming back from a holiday here in the States. I mean, how often should they follow up before it becomes annoying?
I would say, I don't know, some people send out monthly newsletters. That's really nice. So it just keeps you top of mind. Maybe not like every few days. That probably would not be advisable, but yeah, like once a month, something like that's probably good.
Yeah, once a month, quarterly, something like that. Also, just a little personal information for everybody on this call, because I think people love to hear how you got places. Granted, I'm not a regular shooter like you are, but I will say something that the way I got my foot into the door at Red Bull the first time was exactly what you're talking about. So I set calendar reminders. I had met the director of photography many years ago. And I set calendar reminders just to reach out. So I reached out to him once and he was like, you know what, we might be needing somebody on staff in a few months. So then I set a calendar reminder and was like, email so-and-so. So then like 3 months later, I emailed him, just as like a little tip if you're ever trying to keep things top of mind.
So smart. I love that. Jenna, talk to us about how your day-to-day works.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I want to harp on that Kelly brought up is that About Me page on your website. For me, in my position, what I'm really trying to do is tell a story. So when I'm hiring a photographer, I really look at what your background is, what your story is, and how it ties into the bigger picture of what the shoot is trying to convey. So my focus is with Kelly on music and dance. So if you're a dancer yourself, or, you have some sort of musical background, things like that, we like to know about you because it helps tie into the bigger editorial story. So those are things that I'm always looking for when it comes to hiring, really what that bigger through line of storytelling will be. the way that my day-to-day works, I'm on the national level. So I work with all of our regions across Red Bull. So I see that it's really great seeing how you guys are all over the place, really. And so we work across the United States. So we have a bunch of different regions, bunch of different senior comms managers. And so when we have events across the states, we have comms managers that are going to be looking for photographers in their specific region. When they do have events coming up, they will come to myself and Kelly for the culture side. Kate is on the sports side, so they'll go to Kate. So it's kind of a similar process. And let us know what the project is and if we have any photographers that we can recommend, or they'll bring photographers to us. So kind of how Kate was saying, there are different entry points into the Red Bull universe. But essentially when it comes down to hiring the photographers, at least on the culture side of things, usually Kelly and myself have eyes on who is up for being hired. So we work very closely with our regional counterparts to help get the right photographers for the right events. So Kelly and myself will go through and look at who is suggested for shooting. We might look and try to source some different photographers if we don't think it's the right fit. So we kind of have this back and forth conversation with our regional counterparts to see who is right for the job. So that can be anything from an editorial shoot to an event shoot, kind of just anything that needs photo coverage. On the flip side of things, starting off at the new year, my role was new starting last year. So I'm kind of developing my role as I go. But one of the things that I'm trying to do is more of a storytelling angle for photo within Red Bull, kind of giving a different viewpoint other than just, event photography and just documenting certain events that have happened. So really thinking outside the box. Last year, myself, Kelly, and Kate, we worked on like a mental health project, and we really focused on our female athletes, both athlete, dance, music, all the avenues, and really highlighted some of our female talent within the Red Bull space and kind of gave it a different viewpoint, just a different story to tell versus this is a dancer, watch them dance. This is an athlete, watch them at their sport. So those are the kind of things I'm looking for. So like we've mentioned, if you have some sort of fun pitch or a project you're working on that you think might work well with the Red Bull culture universe, let us know, because we're always looking for those different stories to tell. And that's kind of where my position comes in, because I am looking for those bigger storytelling avenues to give other new photographers a voice. Give, if you have an interesting angle or a story that you want to tell and it works well with the Red Bull narrative, we want to hear about it, because we can help give that wings, if you will. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I love that. Such great information. Someone asked in the chat just about, let me go back to that question of how you like to receive work. And I guess in that same sense, how much should they include when sending a pitch? Is it just, a paragraph? Do they attach some photos of their vision or whatever? What makes sense when sending over that pitch, when sending over work?
Yeah, I think really, like I said, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're passionate about this project that you're pitching. I don't think it has to be anything detailed, just like a small elevator pitch, why you think it's a good fit, something about yourself, what ties you to this project. And then examples are always great. If we can see some photos, some visual direction of what you're thinking of, that's always super helpful. And then from there, we can always put a meeting on the calendar and dive deeper into it. So I think just a top line overview with some visual examples is always really great.
And just to get specific in here, because somebody asked about PDF versus a link to a gallery, things like that. Either of those work great. All of us are pretty tech savvy. If it's a PDF, just, compress it, keep it small. And if it's a web gallery, just make sure that link works. Either of those work great, and we get both of them really, really regularly. Sometimes we get email newsletters where people put kind of that PDF, but it's clickable within an email. That works great too. We're all pretty savvy on those things. And to reiterate just two little very specific things that both Jenna and Kelly mentioned, we love to know, so often photographers, they're so accomplished, and Peter, I'm sure you see this too, they do work worldwide. We love to hear that you work worldwide, but we also love to know where you're based. So just one suggestion, because we are truly a national company, and sometimes depending on budgets, we really want to know if you're in Oklahoma or if you're in Kansas City. And then you can also write based in Kansas City, travel worldwide. We just love to know those things. Sometimes when it says just worldwide to me, I'm like, but where are you based? I love you. So that would be one little thing. The other very little thing, that just since we are all looking at websites all day long, in your contact page, so often canned websites have that pre-made form where you have to write in, there's not your email address. Please list your email address somewhere where we can just copy and paste it and grab it. Those are just very basic, like very little tangible.
I'm so glad you made those points, because I mean, I cannot stress this enough. After working with photo editors and just hearing their their little pet peeves, like, I mean, these are very busy folks. They don't necessarily have the time to fill out your long booking information form. They don't have that paper trail. Thank you so much for dropping in a chat an example of a good contact page. As you can see, this person has their information, what they do, where they're based, their credentials, anything that's notable that, you know, backs them up and shows like what they've been doing, their awards and residencies. Don't be afraid to brag about yourself, contact information, social media. And I think one thing I always make sure that I try to stress to photographers, make sure you actually have it linked to your actual channels, because sometimes photographers have it still connected to the platform like Squarespace or whatever, but like this is perfect. So thank you for dropping in the chat an example. Now I'm actually gonna pull up some work from photographers. Oh, Peter, were you about to say something? Sorry.
I was just like on the subject of like where people are from. I think this was already true and got amplified by COVID, where all the time like ideas come to me where it's like, there's this really rad park roller skater in Nashville, or there's this chef in St. Paul that's has this really cool social impact project, and already we just don't want to like have to put someone on an airplane for a 2-page story that's we need one portrait and one dynamic shot. And so knowing that we have people on the ground all over the place can lead to opportunities. And obviously it's like if somebody in Nashville knows about this really rad park roller skater, then maybe the idea actually can originate with the photographer, but that, you know, we all the time are just looking for the right talent in a specific place. And like, so having that information front of mind, you know, more for my photo editor than for me, honestly, but it really does matter. Like on Friday, we're shooting this woman who's like an elite cyclist who's an Afghani refugee who just happens to live like in Sedona, Arizona. And it was like, we needed to find a photographer who could like shoot portraiture and action in Sedona. And that kind of stuff happens all the time. Sorry if anyone on this call is in Sedona.
I also think with the topic of location, like I was saying earlier with the storytelling of the photographers, you know, sometimes we're looking for something super regional. So having someone that lives and breathes the culture of that city, of that location that we're shooting in, is really nice to have a tie through as well. So like if we're doing a story about a dancer or artist that's from a certain city and you're from that city, it's nice to keep the photography talent local. So it ties into that regional story for us as well. And then one thing I saw in the chat asking about the photo clinic. So real quick, we do some photo clinics around some of our events. It's something that we've been starting up as of last year. I can give my contact information, but I'm really taking the lead on those and spreading them out to the regions. So there will be more of them coming up this year. It'd be great if you are interested in some of these photography clinics, just letting me know like where you're based out of, what you specialize in, what you want to learn, and then we can see if there's a workshop that makes sense for you.
Thank you. And follow up, Shelby asked, what is a photo clinic?
Totally. So what we've been doing this last year is around some of our events, it'll be a 1 or 2 day photo workshop where I bring in one of our top photographers that kind of teaches some basics depending on skill level, and then really focusing in on the specialty around whatever that event is. So we've done some around like our breakdance events. So we'll bring in a photographer that specializes in breakdance photography to kind of teach you how to capture motion, how to know what to look for when you're shooting breakdance specifically. And then the clinic usually ends with a mentorship at the event itself, where you have photo credentials to go around the event and shoot as if you were hired. Post event, we go through, we see some of the photos you've done and kind of give like a mini critique of the photos, what worked, what didn't, what went well. So kind of you just see what it's like to be a Red Bull photographer from start to finish, with some educational workshops beforehand. And it's been really great for us. It's usually small groups, so it's very intimate. You get a lot of learning. And what's really great about it too is yes, they are free. We bring you in, we make sure that you're taken care of. But then at the end of the day, if you really do well in it, it gives us an opportunity to hire you for different events where you're actually paid to do it, because these ones are kind of more educational. So we're not paying you to do it. But at the end of the day, if your work is stellar and you understand it and we want to work with you, it gives that opportunity to hire you for other events. And we have, from our photo clinics, hired a bunch of these new and upcoming photographers, which is really exciting for us.
That is so amazing. What a wonderful pipeline program. Thank you for that context and the questions. Keep them coming. So yes, so this is the US team, but Red Bull is everywhere, including global. So they can connect you to the global team as well. So thank you for that. I'm gonna start sharing some portfolios. Okay, I'm seeing who dropped in the chat. Here's an example again. And this was in the link. I'll send this after as well, of just like a good bio. If you have a photo of yourself, a professional photo of yourself, you can add it there as mentioned in the chat. They will love to put faces to names. So I'm gonna go to Shelby's. Can you all see this okay? Okay, great. So Shelby, you are based in, let's see, Oakland, I believe, Oakland, California. You have your direct location, perfect. I love the photo, the family tie. I don't know, Shelby, I'm putting you on the spot. If you want to unmute yourself, if you want to unmute yourself and tell them directly what it is that you do, what do you like to do? I'll just let you take the floor.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shelby Mastina. I am first generation Haitian American photographer based in Oakland, California. I was originally born in Orlando, and I went to school in New York. Started photography in 2020 as a hobby, and it has evolved to what you have seen here. I honestly just love to capture people. I think that I like to call my work a cross between editorial and documentary. I like to connect with those who I photograph, and so I have a passion project called Narratives, where I go around Oakland and I interview natives and I talk about the things that they're doing to support the community, to pour into the Black community, and I take photos of them. The photos that you see here on my site, these are all images that I have they're either friends or people I've reached out to on Instagram to shoot. I did my first collaboration last year in Cape Town, South Africa. And that was a story, it's called Daughters. And that was my ode to basically the past, very much inspired by Daughters of the Dust. And really just kind of was a photo series where I kind of explored my ancestry, how my parents immigrated here, how my ancestors immigrated or were displaced to Haiti, and where they were before, and kind of using all of that emotion to kind of celebrate that past, even though it is ugly, but just the beauty of what it has afforded us in the future. So yeah.
So I'm biased, so I'm not going to tell you how much I love your work, but I want to hear from them. And I also want to ask a question, and this is, again, this is for everybody as well, just to take note and think about your own work. When you are looking at someone's site and you see their personal projects, does that play a role in whether or not you hire them? Like, does that help get an understanding of the photographer? Should we showcase our personal projects like this?
Yeah. I think yes. I mean, the personal projects for me, it shows what you're passionate about. And again, back to that storytelling, for me, that's so important. Seeing what you're passionate about and what really drives you helps when I'm looking through photographers, and it makes you stand out because you have a voice. It's not like you're just grabbing a camera and shooting beautiful photos for nothing. It really gives you that passion behind it. So I love to see your personal projects like this.
100% agree, especially like there are a lot of photographers who maybe the bulk of their like existing commercial work is one kind of thing, and yet they have a passion for something else, and that like tells an important story of like what someone's doing like in their own time to create and what they are most passionate about. And often it's a photographer's best work, right? Because they've like poured their heart into that thing. So I definitely care about it.
Yes, just to echo that, I love that. Kelly and I just had a meeting with a photographer that we were just getting to know, and he had his personal project. It turns out he loves cars, but everything he shoots is like fighting and commercial work and things like that. And because he loved cars and his love of cars and this one personal project he had on his site, Kelly and I nominated him for a motorsports workshop, and he ended up joining it and was exceptional. And it was all because of just one personal project he had on his site. So I just echo everything that they just said, not to confirm that.
Yeah, I also want to comment on the fact that you said you started in 2020. You just started shooting in 2020, and this is what your work looks like.
Yeah.
I'm super impressed. Seriously, you're beautiful.
Another note I love about this, and I get that I'm the sports person here, so I'm the wrong person to talk about this, but I love photography and I'm a shooter myself. What I do love that you put a variety of different lighting situations on your site. So it's not all just the same thing. So those are interesting little things that all of us are looking at when we're looking to hire photographers, is we can see that you can shoot in a lot of different times. You can shoot at sunset, you can shoot in broad daylight, you can shoot in black and white. I think you scrolled down and there was like that one of the girl, it looks like you actually lit her with lights. So those are things we're looking at when we're looking at your site, beyond it being, this is gorgeous and exceptional. And we love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one observation I'd make is like, I probably deal with writers a little bit more than I deal with photographers, but I think a common thread is like, you read someone's work or you look at their images and you get a feeling of like what their voice is and their point of view. And when I look at your portfolio, there is something like cohesive where I get like a feeling of like how you look at the world, how your eye is, how the color palettes and the lighting is, where you get a sense that you have like a point of view of how you shoot. And sometimes you look at sites and you just don't get that feeling. When someone, like so often as an editor, my photo editor might send me like a 3-sentence email and like 3 links to photographers, if I'm just being honest about how it can work. And I'll like click through and look at the top part of 3 photographers' websites, and like I have to make some sort of a judgment, not that it's necessarily my decision, but I'll offer my opinion based on spending like 30 seconds on 3 people's websites. And you like want to get the idea that somebody has like a style and like, you know, you're looking at the technical quality and like how all the different photos that are shown sort of fit together to give you a sense of who they are. And that really matters a lot of like who gets work and who doesn't.
So many great points. I hope y'all are taking notes. But don't worry, this is also being recorded, so you can actually listen back to it and, you know, go back to their advice. Shelby, while you're still on this spot, do you have a question for them or anything? If not, that is totally fine.
Yeah, I don't have, well, I mean, I was really interested when I think Jenna mentioned, is it Jenna? Yes, Jenna mentioned just going into more of the storytelling and the movements and dance and everything. And so I didn't know if that also incorporated some type of sports. What, I mean, Red Bull, is that necessarily like, I know you guys said sports and movement. Is there anything else, or is that really kind of like the main focus?
I think for us, you know, it's so broad. We do so many different things. So, I mean, for Kelly and myself, movement is really key because so much of what we cover is movement. Same with sports. There's a lot of movement in sports, but that's not to say that we're not looking for beautiful portraiture either, because we are branching into more of that editorial lens. So I don't think there's really any limit as to what Red Bull's looking for. I think as long as you're showcasing your strengths through your photography, that's what's most important, because we're looking to hire the right photographer for the right shoot. And, you know, I don't think that there is any limit on what that is. Does that make sense?
Yes, and just one last question. When you're talking about pitching editorial stories, is that also just kind of limitless of what it can be, whether it's about community or someone? Okay, awesome.
Totally. And I think because what's nice about it too is when we hear from you guys what you're pitching, we can kind of marinate with it and figure out if it's right for Red Bull and how we work that into what we're looking for. So it could be more of like a collaboration, but like having that seed of initial thought from you is awesome, because then we can go back and forth and see what we can do to make it happen, to make it up level it to whatever we need to do to bring that story to light.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great questions. I'm gonna pull up another site right now. I'm bringing up Sabrina, who's based in San Francisco Bay Area, California. She has her location, her email, her phone number.
I love Skate Like a Girl. That's so cool, Sabrina.
Okay, great. So, because I'm bringing this up because I think it touches on a lot of things that you all mentioned. She shares her background, where she's based, shows that she even has a direct connection to dance and movement. She was a Black ballerina. You know, I'm just sharing this as another example from within the community. She has her photo. And I'm bringing up her project, Skate Like a Girl, because I also love this project, because how often do you see this? And I guess my question is to you all, when you have a project like this that is, you know, such a on brand for a brand like Red Bull, you know, should Sabrina then approach you all and said, like, hey, like, here's my work, here's an example of this project, and just leave it at that, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that something like this comes up again? Or maybe should she pitch something much bigger? Like, I did this for this, you know, place, but what if we did a series like this? I don't know, how would that work? I'm just throwing that out there.
Sorry, guys, it took me a second to find the unmute button. So this is exactly the type of thing when I'm noted, when you do new work, that you send it to us. This is like exactly the type of new work I would love to see. Like right after you finish this project and you got it dialed and edited it, I would love for this to hit my inbox. Red Bull, actually, Skate Like a Girl is already on Red Bull's radar. And a lot of times we partner with companies like this. So we might send them free Red Bull to the event, or just things like that, because we don't want to take over any of these events. But seeing your photos of this, what I love about this, scrolling through this, and actually this related back to the last site we were looking at, this tells the story of the event from start to finish. So it's really unglamorous shooting events sometimes for Red Bull, especially on the sports side. But I would say we probably 50% of the sports shoots, if not more, that come across my event are actually event photography. So this could not be more of what I would want to see on my side of what you're doing. And just like as you scroll down, you show this is like straight up action. I love that. Do you think you could scroll down just a little bit? And you're showing the landings of what the women are shooting on. You always want to see landings when you're shooting any sort of like action, like skate, moto, surf. You want to see what they're landing on. But then you're also showing people having fun. You're showing an overall view, like that overall shot. We can see the setting that it's actually taken place in. This would be, I would be so psyched if I came across your site and saw this. This is another great example of putting projects on your site and why it's so important. Like that photo is awesome. It just like is so fun to see what's going on at this event. Did I answer that question? So yes,
no,
I love
that
this.
was perfect.
Send this project to us. This is exactly the kind of project that we'd want to see. And I don't want to speak for Kelly and Jenna here, but if you shot the equivalent of this, that was a concert or dance or even a really cool art event, that's the kind of thing that we would love to have hit our inbox that's new.
I love it. Oh, go ahead, Kelly. Sorry.
I just had one word, agreed.
Amazing. Okay, I'm gonna pull up somebody else's right now. I'm pulling up Elsie. Can you all see Elsie's? I don't know if it, okay, great. So Elsie is based in London in the UK. And I'm pulling up Elsie because I know Elsie also does sports and it's so hard getting access to some of these events. And so I'm gonna just pull up just something real quick, because you guys mentioned, I think it was Peter who said, you know, sometimes you only have 30 seconds to look at a site, which literally is just like that. So what do you guys all go to first, and how many projects should someone have? Should it just be ranked from newest to oldest, most important? Like, how do you just navigate a site?
I guess, you know, there's some like context depending on like what the project is about. I mean, obviously, if a photographer is going to email me or my photo editor, that chances are they're either going to direct them to their homepage or to a link to a specific project or area. You know, but if I don't get that direction, I'll go in and I'll look at the photographer's homepage and look at the navigation and see if there's something that's going to jump out at me, either that's like relevant to what we're talking about or something that feels in line with the magazine. You know, I definitely look at that navigation in a way where I'll be like partially like, because kind of going back to the skate one, it's like our magazine, like a lot of Red Bull properties, it's like dynamic imagery is like an elemental part of what our brand is about, right? Like we run some really incredible portraiture. We definitely employ some photographers who are like, you know, have shot presidents and Hollywood stars who can like take a famous person with a half an hour in front of a seamless and create something meaningful. But most of it is still like has like movement of some kind, and so for a lot of photographers, I'm kind of looking to see if they can do both. Like if they're going to be someone who is going to be able to capture something dynamic and get some really nice portraits, and has some like fluency in whatever we're thinking about for them, right? Like shooting skate is one of like 200 things I can think of where there's like this endemic eye, right? Like if you don't skate, it's really hard to shoot skating, right? It's same if riding bikes, and it's same even with like dance. If you just don't even have like an appreciation for what looks cool, then you can't really shoot it. And so I'm looking for that also.
And I'm just going to be the nuts and bolts person because I echo everything Peter said. It was seeing the pull down menus, how you were going through those, Polly, that was really useful. So this site would be it would be really easy for all of us because we can pop into it. We can see everything she can shoot. I can see under portraits, you even had like specific things. Like I would myself would probably click on that basketball 2017, 2018 link really quickly, depending on what I was looking at. So I do enjoy that. I also love how your top tabs are overarching, but they're still divided. So I love that you actually put those step and repeat photos on there, especially for us, because, you know, people can skip over that if they want, or they can pop right into that if that's really useful and that's what they need. Interesting for us, every so often we need step and repeat photos. So that's really nice for us. So I would say this is like a win on how navigation works.
I just wanted to add an additional comment, just something that I noticed. Like, you should put first whatever it is you want to be hired for. So if you want to be alive, I hate to pigeonhole people because I feel like everyone's always growing and their portfolio is changing over time. So I don't want to say that once you're one thing, you're always something. But if you are in a season in your life where you want to be focusing on live music photography, then that should be first in your portfolio. If you are primarily a portraits person or lifestyle, then that should be first. So just put whatever it is your main focus is on, no pun intended.
Such great advice. You all, we're coming close to time. We have about 7 minutes left. So if you have any burning questions that they haven't answered, drop it in the chat. I'm going to pull up another portfolio right now.
I just dropped a website in that has nothing to do with us. He's a BMX photographer that I used to work with, and he's trying to transition into shooting a lot of other things. So I think he's built out his site interestingly. Oops, this is the wrong Andrew White. Apologies. Moral of the story, that was really bad. The moral of the story is that he has his whole site built out for what he wants to shoot now. I loved Kelly's comment, but he has one little tab that says BMX, and it's at the bottom of the site, and it's like what he used to shoot and what he used to be known for. So if anybody still wants to hire him for that, they can. But when you come to his site, it's definitely not that anymore. And I find a lot of respect in that, and I like that. I just agree with what Kelly said.
Love it. So I'm pulling up Taylor's, who's based in, I think, Virginia, DMV area. And Taylor, I know you do a lot of sports and also specialized sports. And so if you have any questions, feel free to unmute. I'm just pulling up your work right now. I have a question for you all. You know, when someone is shooting something that is, you know, movement based or something so specialized like boxing or MMA or whatever it may be, how many photos do you want to see in that particular set? How many is too much? I mean, are you going to spend time looking at everything?
I think what's important when you're doing something like this is to really pick the best of the best. You don't want to have a lot of duplicates, something that looks similar back to back. So, you know, some close-ups, some pull-outs, some portraits, some actual movement, kind of just enough photos to capture that shoot as a whole, rather than showing like a progression of like punching, and they all kind of look the same, but they're different people. Just finding those few in that segment that really highlight the event as a whole, if that makes sense. So I don't think that there's a limit on how many photos you want to post from a shoot, just showing the variety and how much, what different angles, what different looks, lighting that you got in that one shoot, and capturing it as an overall shoot is really helpful.
Yeah, I'd say also for this sort of, I don't know if to call it a genre of photography, that it's like, you know, in a magazine, we're always like looking for different perspectives. And so it's like, I love seeing shoots where it's like kind of action and then like tight portraiture and shots that show like detail where it's like, you're almost like, if indeed you're trying to get magazine kind of work to show like a sensibility of like the kinds of scale and perspectives that would tell a story from a bunch of different perspectives.
That makes a lot of sense. Such great advice. Just being mindful of time. I guess I'll just stop sharing the screen. And again, I'm going to share contact information after this so you all can follow up. And now you know the best practices on how to reach them and what they look for. Just to close, is there any, anything else that we may not have touched on that you all want to tell the photographers to be mindful of, whether it's portfolios, whether it's pitching, whatever it may be?
I'll throw one closing thought out. It is like, I get to go to a lot of shoots with a lot of truly great photographers, like people who've like made it at the highest level. And I know that I'm just, my sense is that everyone on this call is at some various point of their journey from where they started to where they're going. But I would say that like the best photographers are just like, they're like fucking obsessive, right? Like that there is like no end to just like how like people that have already made it, they just are like so technically obsessive. They're so able to like seamlessly relate to talent in a way that's like cool and relaxed while being like just like they're just so obsessive, and that it's like they have that fire. Like every shoot they do, they're like, worried that they're not gonna do their very best, and you can feel it when you're in their presence that they just like, they wake up every day and they're just like want to do something great, and they have to prove it all over again. And same with writers. And I just like, I love working with people that are like that hungry. Right. It's like, and just like, that's my only like meta thought is like, I know we're talking a lot about like what's on the website, but it's like a lot of it's like what's in your heart and your belly, and love to see people go after that.
To echo that, Peter, I was going to say one thing, and this is a little bit controversial. I can remember some of my mentors and photo editors telling me a little bit different advice. So I want you to know that you need to do what you feel true to do. That's the first thing I would say. And what Peter said, do what's in your heart. But one thing I would say is to say yes. So what I find fascinating with the photographers we work with, and it's a lot of times, especially, I think, I can't speak to huge brands, but I've worked at Surfline, I've worked at TV Guide, I've worked at the Daily Mail. And so sometimes that first shoot that's offered to you with a brand isn't your dream shoot, and it's not exactly what you want to do. But if you feel like the rate is fair and you feel like you trust the people you're working with, I would say to say yes. Especially at Red Bull, we snowball. So once you shoot with us once and you meet one person and they like you and you deliver, then a lot of times you maybe get offered something else. So that would I would say to say yes. And what's really interesting for me is some of our photographers who are like Peter has mentioned are just epic photographers. These are people who shoot for National Geographic, who shoot for huge clients and are so talented. Every so often, I'll be like, I wonder if they would do that, because I start to get photographers' vibes, and I would love to have them shoot something, but maybe the budget isn't huge, or maybe it's in a weird location. And I just hit them up just in case, because it would be my first choice. And sometimes they say yes, and I'm so pleasantly surprised. And then I just keep asking them for more and more things. And of course, we like to bring in new photographers. But as a new photographer, I think that's a great way in the door. I'm sorry, I don't want to take up too much time, and I want to leave Jenna and
Kate, that was a really good point that you made. I thought of something while Peter and Kate were speaking. Attitude is super important. Just showing up and being excited about being there. I mean, it's similar to what Peter was saying, but we've had photographers who are definitely more up and coming, who have had the best attitude, and we are just so excited to keep working with them and guiding them to become better versions of themselves photography wise. And it's just such a nice experience when someone is in a good place and excited to be there and be working with us.
I think kind of just going off that too is don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that's something that I really respect is if you're on a shoot and say you're looking at it a certain way and you take a couple test shots and you're not sure if that's what the client wants or, ask questions, show what you're shooting. And that way you can get that feedback before you jump into it. I think for me, Kelly really, really nailed that point. Attitude is so important. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with a photographer and the ego or the attitude, it really dampers the whole event, the shoot, and it makes you not want to work with them again. So as long as you come with a good attitude and you're willing to learn and ask questions, especially as an up and coming photographer, I really respect that because you don't know what you don't know until you ask. And I think that's, for me, that's really is how I've gotten to where I am in my career is admitting what I don't know and learning from it and figuring it out. So don't be afraid when you're just jumping into like the world of photography. I know some of you are more established than others, doesn't matter where you are in that journey. Just know that you can ask questions and it's not going to make you look stupid. You always ask is my opinion.
Such great advice. I love to, oh, sorry, were you about to say something else? No, okay, great. This has been such a great hour. Thank you all so much. Like, again, I can't thank you all enough for taking the time to do this. Photographers, there was a lot of information. Maybe some of y'all have some homework to do. I know I do. I need to update my bio. This was so great. And I will send everyone's contact information after this so you can follow up, you can get on their radars, and yeah, we'll see what 2022 brings. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Have a great night or day or whatever, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.